Welcome to the Dawn of War Crucible tutorial. Today we will be looking at the Space Marine Stronghold, its mechanics, strategies to beat it, and any other miscellaneous information that is relevant. To start off, let's talk about the autoexec.lua file as always. So this file has a bunch of cheat commands that you can access in order to make your game easier. To access it, you need to have dev mode turned on, and then you press the key corresponding to the hotkeys in here. There are commands to give you extra resources, to disable or enable the fog of war so you can see the entire map, and commands that can change the game speed. If you're really struggling and seem like you're in a rut, I recommend using either the game speed or the fog of war commands in order to see what's going on or make the game a little bit easier without just removing all challenge from it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, Space Marine Stronghold is interesting because you basically have to trade aggression with the Space Marines. So, first thing to note is that, let me show you as you get further away, the beacons are invisible. The only reason that you can see it is that because I spawn with a big mech, which is a detector. But the Deepstrike beacons, they are invisible. So, let's talk about the Deepstrike mechanic first, as that's the main mechanic on this map. Let me just deal with the initial wave so I don't die. So, Deepstrike beacons. They spawn units just like they did right there, which will come and attack you. The important thing to note is that the Deepstrike mechanic is a seesaw. So, it starts at tier 1 and it goes up in tiers every 2 minutes. One thing to note is that whenever I say any sort of timer, I am talking about it on brutal difficulty. So that will not so on hard difficulty you have 50% more time, so instead of 2 minutes you have 3 minutes, and on normal you have 100% more time, so you have 4 minutes instead of 2 minutes. So every 2 minutes they will tier up their beacons. What that means is that the units that spawn from the beacons will get stronger and stronger. So what happens, another thing that happens is that initially there only one attack wave spawns from the beacons. Okay, so at a certain time, I think it's around 2 minutes as well, an attack wave will spawn, and only one attack wave will spawn at a beacon, and initially it will be tier 1. Okay? As it tiers up, when it reaches tiers 5, 7, and 9, it will reduce its tier, but increase the amount of beacons that it spawns from. So, for example, the first time the Space Marines reach tier 5 on their beacons, they will, instead of sending one attack wave, they will start sending 2 attack waves every single time. And then when that reaches tier 7, that will become 3. So basically, if you turtle and don't destroy the beacons, the mission will get impossibly difficult, as you will get multiple waves of really powerful units. So, in order to beat the mission, you have to be aggressive and deal with the beacons appropriately as they come up. Okay? So the way you do that is such. You destroy one of the beacons, and that lowers the tier. So if they were tier 2, it would go down to tier 1. Here's an interesting thing. If they were in tier 1, yes, it will go to tier 0. And yes, you do benefit from going even into negative. So let's say they were tier 1 and you were to destroy 2 beacons. It would be at -1, and the mission would still work fine. So you would still benefit from it. I won't get into exact details of how it works, but basically, even if you destroy all the beacons early, or like a few beacons early, you don't get less effect because of that. You still get the same effect. You still benefit from, destroying the beacons, even if you do so relatively early. Okay? That's the first thing I wanted to note. And second thing is that the more beacons you destroy, like relatively early, the easier it will be. So if you manage to destroy, because the amount of attack waves is sent. So remember when I said at tier 5, this starts spawning 2 attack waves. The tier goes down, sure, but the amount of attack waves that is sent at you is not. So if it sent 2 attack waves at you and you were to destroy a few beacons, you would get weaker attack waves, but it would still be 2 attack waves. So the point that the thing that you're trying to do is destroy the beacons in a timely manner so that you never, ideally you never have to deal with 2 or more attack waves from the beacons, but that's not really realistic. So you want to prevent yourself from having to deal with 3 or, God forbid, 4 attack waves from the beacons. And that's the early game, where if you go to your objectives, that will pop up once the beacon is destroyed. I can't really show it here because I don't have enough units to destroy it, which is a-okay. So the beacons are all in this kind of area. There's like 1 or 2 over here, and there's like 1 or 2 over here. But most of the time, what you would want to do is you would want to secure the initial area, secure this outpost, and start heading down, because you have 2 listening posts over here, a listening post over here, a listening post over here, and you just kind of go down and around and you scour this entire area. Because, as you may note, this area is really freaking well defended, as is this area over here, so you don't want to have to deal with that, and you definitely don't want to have to deal with this boy early, so yeah. So that's the initial stage of the game. There really isn't all that much strategy to it. Feel free to figure out your own best order to go about this, but it will change from game to game. But the idea is you destroy all of the beacons in this kind of lower area, and then maybe destroy the ones over here, or destroy the 1 or 2 that are over here. Okay. So, what then? You have this area secured. Well, you have a few options. At a certain point, these side bases will spawn. Something to note, before, the side bases activated when you destroyed a certain amount of beacons. This is not the case anymore. Now, they will activate after a certain amount of time passes, which means that sitting around and waiting does not benefit you. It benefits the Space Marines. This is the main kind of philosophy. Trying to sit around and turtle up is not going to work out in your favor. So, yeah, these bases will activate. This base will send transports at you, starting with, normal rhinos and ending with land raiders and a bunch of infantry. This base will start by sending vehicles, and as you can probably tell by the Titan assembly bay, it will end by sending a bunch of Titans your way. So you want to deal with these bases in a reasonably timed manner, or you want to set up defenses so that you can defend yourself from them and try to destroy the main base. Those are kind of the 2 strategies. You either go and scour the side bases, at least one, preferably both, or you just try to go straight for the main. Speaking of the main base, it will start sending attack waves at you when there are 2 or less beacons left and one of the side bases is destroyed. And these attack waves will ramp up. Like, they will start by sending some infantry at you, and it ends up by sending titans at you as well. So after you have after you have scoured most of the map except for the main base, and you're like sitting in this choke point, know that you are not safe. Sure, you're only getting attacked from one point, but if you take too long, those attack waves will still be very difficult to deal with. So, yeah, that's the main thing. Beacons, side bases get activated. You are encouraged to deal with the side bases. Once you dealt with most of the beacons and one of the side bases, the main base starts attacking you, and you kind of have to deal with it before it starts sending shit at you that you simply can't deal with. So, yeah. Relatively simple design, but it is quite effective and quite difficult to deal with, where it's just constant pressure. You are heavily encouraged to deal with a mechanic, and once you've dealt with that mechanic, a new mechanic activates, which also encourages you to deal with that, and that kind of ramps up until you win or you get overwhelmed. So, let's move on to strategies now. Strategy number 1, as I kind of alluded to earlier, get these 3 listening posts, get the one up here, and destroy the beacon. That will give you some extra time, and then just head down. Don't worry if these defenses look intimidating. This is brutal. There is less defenses, and the listening posts have fewer upgrades on lower difficulties, so this is not nearly as intimidating on lower difficulties, and it's relatively easy to deal with. So you head down, you capture the 3 listening posts over here, deal with all the beacons, and then I would recommend heading left, where you destroy this and the beacon over here somewhere. Destroy this, capture this. You can set up a defensive perimeter over here, which will protect you from any attack waves coming from the main. You can set up a defensive line over here to deal with any attack waves coming from here, and since you know that it will mostly be vehicles and aircraft, you can relatively easily deal with it by just building a bunch of anti-vehicle turrets. And there you go. That way you're kind of protected on this side, and you can focus all of your efforts into pushing up here, getting the relic, getting this base dealt with. And one beautiful thing about doing things this way is that you will deal with all the beacons. Because if you go right first and then circle around, you will not have the units early to deal with all of this and deal with the 2 beacons in here. So you will have these stragglers that you need to deal with later. But if you circle around left first, and then go right, you will deal with all the beacons in a fairly orderly manner. Okay, so then you go right, you deal with all of this, you capture the relic, you can sit back at this point a little bit, tech up, get your relic units, and then push the base on the left and the center. Okay, so that's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2, similar beginning, grab all of this, head down, but after capturing this, head right. This is a riskier strategy, but getting the relic early can be very beneficial, especially if you want to try to finish the mission early. Because this boy is tough to deal with, right? So if you want to try to finish the mission early, you head down, you head right, you grab the relic, and you try to push through here. So you go past the relic, go left, you're in the main base, and you can try to push here. So you can get some tier 3, maybe a tier 4 Titan, and just push through and try to win. You can also destroy this base, but remember, there's 2 beacons over here, so if you deal with all the beacons over here and all the beacons over here, and with the space, you'll start getting attack waves from the main, and potentially Titans, so that's going to be rough. So yeah, those are kind of the two main strategy. A third strategy that I wouldn't really recommend unless you're really experienced is to opt out of going up onto this ledge or this ledge in the first place and just grab this entire area and try to push straight through the main with the crit. It's doable, but you're leaving yourself in a very risky position where you still have beacons left over here that will spawn attack waves. You still have the Rhino attack waves. You have attack waves coming from this end. So you can do it, especially if you set up good defensive perimeters like over here and over here. But it is a risky strategy where you might not be able to win before you get overwhelmed. And that's kind of the main thing. You're encouraged to deal with a bunch of different attack waves and a bunch of different threats. And if you're not able to deal with them in time, you get overwhelmed. And if you choose to not deal with them, you will eventually get overwhelmed. So that's kind of the timer on this mission, because there is no hard timer. There is no, oh, they reach this point, you lose. There is a thing where if you go late enough into the game, the Space Marines get their researches in their Emperor's Armory that make their heroes super good, that make their buildings super tough, that kind of thing. But that happens way, way late into the game. So unless you're playing very slow, you don't really have to worry about it. And that's basically the Stronghold. To summarize, prioritize dealing with the beacons. They are a big threat, and like, the defenses that they have are minimal. The idea with the Stronghold is that the defenses of the beacons are minimal, but the attack waves that they spawn are monstrous. So you can attack way better than you can defend, is the basic idea. So be aggressive early, deal with as many beacons as you can, either go left or right depending on what exactly you want to do. And then just be careful of the attack waves spawning from the side bases or the main base, as those can be deadly as well. And that's basically it. If you are confused about something or want some help, you can feel free to leave a comment, but I would personally recommend joining the Discord. We have channels dedicated to helping you with either specific factions or with strongholds or campaign as a whole. So I recommend you join there and ask for help. We're much more likely to be able to give you comprehensive help there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.